Buddhism for Today, The Essential Wisdom of the Threefold Lotus Sutra by Nikkyo Niwano, Part 2, The Sutra of the Lotus Flower of the Wondrous Dharma, Chapter 11, The Appearance of the Jeweled Stupa. The important symbolic expressions in this chapter. This chapter is reminiscent of Chapter 1, Introductory, because it tells a story that at first may sound like a fantasy to us. But as I have previously discussed in the introduction, the sutra often represents abstract ideas in the form of imagery in order to help people better absorb them. This entire chapter is a case in point. The easiest way to understand this chapter is to begin by exploring the symbolic meaning of its fantastic account. First, we must consider the description of the stupa of the precious seven substances that springs up out of the earth. This stupa symbolizes the Buddha nature that all living beings possess. The sudden emergence of the stupa, Buddha nature, from out of the earth, implies the unexpected discovery of our own Buddha nature within our ordinary selves. Hence the title of this chapter, The Appearance of the Jeweled Stupa. Within this stupa is the Tathagata Abundant Treasures, who represents the universal truth realized by Shakyamuni Buddha. Unchanged since the inception of the universe, this universal truth remains constant in the face of time and space, and is revealed as the eternal Buddha, who manifests it in the form of innumerable teachings capable of guiding all living beings everywhere. The Buddha's separated embodiments, whom the Buddha emanates to convey the Dharma to all living beings, which also appear in this chapter, symbolize this unchanging, immutable, and omnipresent truth. The Tathagata Abundant Treasures, who sits on a throne inside the stupa, offers to share it with Shakyamuni, calling to him, in the exact words of the sutra, "Shakyamuni Buddha, please sit here." With this act, Abundant Treasures, the symbol of universal truth, testifies to the fact that all the teachings that Shakyamuni Buddha expounds are true, thus proving that they are in accord with the principle of reality. Abundant Treasures is an absolutely reliable witness because his declaration affirming Shakyamuni's teaching is a testimony of universal truth. It may be difficult to fathom the paradoxical notion of truth testifying to truth, but simply speaking, this means that all will invariably turn out to be as Shakyamuni Buddha has taught. All turning out exactly as taught is a testament that what Shakyamuni has said is the truth. There can be no affirmation more certain than this. The image of the Tathagata Abundant Treasures, truth itself, and Shakyamuni Buddha, who expounds that truth, sitting side by side on the lion throne within the stupa of the precious seven substances, is profoundly significant. The two Buddhas show us that, were it not for a person who teaches the truth, ordinary people could not become aware of it, and for this reason, the one who teaches the truth is as exalted as the truth itself. Finally, when the living beings in the assembly wish to be closer to the two Buddhas, who are high up and far away in midair, Shakyamuni Buddha immediately uses his transcendent powers to lift the assembly into the sky. This signifies that when the members of the assembly, and by extension all living beings, discover their own Buddha nature within themselves, they are immediately able to inhabit the world of the Buddhas. With this advanced knowledge, we are now ready to proceed. Grasping the gist of the story of the appearance of the Jeweled Stupa as a whole matters more than knowing the meaning of every single verse or word of the text. For this reason, my discussion will be limited to an outline of the chapter's successive scenes, together with an explanation of their main points. After hearing the Buddha's teaching of Chapter 10, the living beings in the assembly strengthen their resolve to spread this supreme teaching, whatever may happen, and they decide to devote themselves to benefiting other people and the world at large, just as the Buddha has urged them to do. At this very moment, a giant stupa made of the precious seven substances, higher and wider than the eye can see, suddenly springs up out of the ground right in front of them and stops in midair, remaining suspended in the sky above. The stupa is of incomparable beauty, decorated with countless precious things. All living beings in the world, both human and non-human, gather to pay homage to the stupa by making offerings, revering it, honoring it, and praising it. This description of the stupa emerging from beneath the earth carries enormous significance. The earth symbolizes the bodies and minds of ordinary people, and it can also be understood to represent the Saha world, which is made up of a multitude of ordinary people. The emergence of the stupa from within the earth signifies that the awakening and liberation of the Buddhas do not come from outside us or descend from the heavens above. They emerge from within us. Here the Buddha is unmistakably teaching us that only awakening and liberation that arise from within us are truly valuable and possess real transformative power. Just as the stupa springs up out of the earth, called forth by the determination of the living beings in the assembly, the Buddha's teachings are practical, down to earth, and dynamic, not otherworldly and passive. Then, from within the stupa comes a loud, crystal-clear voice. Excellent, excellent world-honored Shakyamuni, you are able to expound the wondrous Dharma Flower Sutra, which reveals the great insight that all living beings possess Buddha nature equally, universal great wisdom. Based on this wisdom, the Dharma Flower Sutra teaches that all living beings become Buddhas through the practice of devoting themselves to the service of others, a teaching that instructs bodhisattvas. It is a teaching that the Buddhas guard closely and expound only when the capacities of living beings to understand have matured, a teaching that Buddhas protect and keep in mind. Shakyamuni has taught this wondrous Dharma Flower Sutra for the Great Assembly, and all that you in the assembly have heard is indeed true. Unquestionably, all that Shakyamuni Buddha teaches is the truth. This is the voice of Tathagata Abundant Treasures, although he is not yet visible. All in the assembly are elated to have experienced something so rare and precious, but they are completely perplexed as to who this could be within the stupa. Meanwhile, the Bodhisattva Great Joy in Teaching is aware of this question that baffles the minds of all living beings in the assembly, and on their behalf, he asks the Buddha why the stupa has sprung up from the earth, and also about the voice that issues from within. As written in the sutra, the Buddha answers the Bodhisattva Great Joy in Teaching, telling him, this stupa contains the entire body of a Tathagata. The phrase, entire body of a Tathagata, means all the virtues and powers that a Tathagata possesses. Here, the Buddha emphatically proclaims that, once a person awakens to their Buddha nature, symbolized by the stupa, they can become just like a Tathagata, possessing an infinite lifespan, furnished with supreme wisdom, and capable of exercising boundless compassion. The meaning of this extremely significant passage is of great importance to us. The Tathagata Abundant Treasures Vow. Shakyamuni Buddha tells the assembly that long ago there was a Buddha called Abundant Treasures. When that Buddha was still practicing the Bodhisattva way, he made a great vow that, if he were to accomplish the way, after he passed away, his stupa would spring forth and appear wherever the Dharma Flower Sutra was taught, in any land in the universe, so that he could listen to it, bear witness to its truth, and praise it, pronouncing it excellent. Shakyamuni Buddha explains that, after that Buddha attained the way and was finally approaching the time of his complete extinguishment, he gathered together a great assembly of heavenly and human beings, announced his vow, and instructed that those who desired to pay homage to his entire body should construct a great stupa. Shakyamuni Buddha then tells the assembly that the stupa that has just emerged from beneath the earth is none other than the grand stupa of this Tathagata Abundant Treasures. Hearing this, the Bodhisattva Great Joy in Teaching tells the Buddha that all in the assembly wish to see the body of the Tathagata Abundant Treasures and pay homage to it. Shakyamuni Buddha acknowledges the wish of the Bodhisattva and the rest of the assembly, but instructs them to wait patiently, explaining, this Buddha Abundant Treasures has made a profound and solemn vow. Even though I cause my stupa to spring forth in order to hear the Dharma Flower Sutra, I will not immediately make my form visible outside the stupa. If any Buddha who expounds the Dharma Flower Sutra wishes to reveal my form to the assembly, that Buddha must first gather together all the innumerable separated embodiments that particular Buddha has emanated throughout the worlds of the entire universe. Each separated embodiment expounds their own teachings that lead to universal truth. I will reveal myself and verify the truth when, by seeing the gathering of these separated embodiments, all in that great assembly in that place understand the following. First, that truth is always one and unchanging. Second, that all living beings who share true teachings throughout the world are embodiments of the Buddha, and because what they are sharing is true, in essence they are teaching the Dharma Flower Sutra. On behalf of the entire assembly, the Bodhisattva Great Joy in Teaching replies to Shakyamuni Buddha that they all earnestly desire to see the Buddhas who are his separated embodiments in order to revere and pay homage to them. Then the world-honored one, Shakyamuni, emits from the tuft of white hair between his eyebrows an indescribably beautiful ray of light, illuminating all the domains throughout the entire universe. Wherever the ray of light reaches, the exquisitely adorned domains of myriads of Buddhas become visible. Each of those Buddhas can be heard addressing the bodhisattvas of their domains, telling them that they must now go to Shakyamuni Buddha in the Saha world and join the Dharma assembly where the Tathagata Abundant Treasures is testifying to the truth of Shakyamuni Buddha's teachings. At that moment, the Saha world is instantly transformed into an immaculate place, the very epitome of purity itself. The meaning of this story is readily understood without any further explanation, but to confirm, the passage above demonstrates that the pure land of the Buddha is not located far away, but is actually here in the Saha world where we live. For the enlightened person, the Saha world itself becomes, just as it is, the realm of the Buddha, the land of eternally tranquil light. The myriad Buddhas who are Shakyamuni's separated embodiments arrive from their domains throughout the entire universe and assemble in the Saha world. They each send their attendant bodhisattva to inquire after and pay homage to Shakyamuni Buddha, and to express their wish that this jeweled stupa be opened. Then they all place their palms together and wait in single-minded anticipation. When Shakyamuni Buddha sees that all his separated embodiments have assembled, he rises into the air, and with the fingers of his right hand, he opens the door of the stupa of the precious seven substances. The door opens with a loud noise like the sound produced by withdrawing the bolt from the lock of a huge city gate. The Tathagata Abundant Treasures, sitting on his lion seat as if deep in meditation, instantly becomes visible within the stupa, and the assembly immediately hears him exclaim, "Excellent, excellent," by which the Tathagata Abundant Treasures means that there is nothing left to say. All is truly perfect and flawless. Shakyamuni Buddha expounds the Dharma Flower Sutra with confidence and satisfaction. I have also come here to listen to this sutra. All in the assembly are utterly astonished that this Buddha, who had entered complete extinguishment innumerable kalpas ago, spoke such words, and they respond by scattering heavenly jeweled flowers on the Tathagata Abundant Treasures and on Shakyamuni Buddha. Then Abundant Treasures, who until this time had been seated in the center of the stupa, quietly shifts to one side of the lion seat and offers the other half to Shakyamuni Buddha, saying, "Shakyamuni Buddha, please sit here." On hearing this, Shakyamuni Buddha immediately enters the stupa and, folding his legs in meditative posture, sits alongside the Tathagata Abundant Treasures. The deep significance of the two Buddhas seated alongside each other in the same stupa is as discussed above. Seeing this, the assembly is briefly overwhelmed by feelings of gratitude and astonishment. But when they realize that the stupa with the two Buddhas is suspended high in the sky, they all feel lonely because the Buddhas suddenly seem so far away. Inwardly, each of them wishes that Shakyamuni Buddha would use his transcendent powers to raise them up into the sky so they could be close to the two Buddhas. Knowing their desires, Shakyamuni Buddha immediately grants their wish by using his transcendent powers to lift the great assembly into the air to be close to the two Buddhas. The two settings and three assemblies. We should note that from this point in the chapter, the setting of the Lotus Sutra shifts from the summit of Divine Eagle Peak to a location in the sky. Shakyamuni Buddha is said to have expounded this sutra in two settings and three assemblies. The Buddha first expounds the sutra at Divine Eagle Peak, and then he continues teaching in midair. Finally, the Buddha returns once again to Divine Eagle Peak to conclude the sutra. In total, the Buddha gives 3 expositions of the Dharma at 2 locations. The significance of the 2 settings and 3 assemblies is as follows. When we initially hear the teachings of the Buddha, we cannot understand them unless they are taught to us from the standpoint of our ordinary reality. The Lotus Sutra is initially expounded on Divine Eagle Peak because the Buddha first reveals his teachings from the standpoint of the real world. This is the teaching of wisdom, which knows things as they are. Next, lifting the assembly into the sky above Divine Eagle Peak, the Buddha shows us the ideal, the state of things that lie beyond our ordinary reality. This is absolute compassion. But the great compassionate teachings of the Buddha are meaningless unless we manifest them in real life through our practice. Hence, the final teachings of the Lotus Sutra returns once again to our reality as represented by Divine Eagle Peak. As often mentioned in this book, the fantastic stories that appear in the Lotus Sutra are not descriptions of a dream world, but allegories that are told on the basis of careful reasoning. The 6 difficulties and 9 easy practices. Shakyamuni Buddha next addresses the 4 groups in a resounding voice from within the stupa, asking them, "Is there anyone who is capable of teaching this Dharma Flower Sutra far and wide throughout the Saha world? I will soon pass away, so I want to entrust this sutra to all of you. The Buddha then uses the metaphors that follow to describe the difficulty of teaching the sutra in the age of the decline of the Dharma after his passing. These are known as the 6 difficulties and 9 easy practices. Shakyamuni Buddha explains that if one took hold of Mount Sumeru and threw it into another region of space that was innumerable Buddha lands away from here, or if one kicked a great thousandfold world system away with the toe of one's foot, or even if one taught his countless other sutras while standing at the highest point in this world, and if one were able to make all living beings comprehend them completely, such actions would certainly be difficult. But none of these feats would be comparable to the difficulty of teaching the Lotus Sutra in an evil age after the Buddha's passing. The Buddha continues, telling the assembly that picking up the sky in one's hands and carrying it around, ascending to the Brahma heaven with the earth balanced on a toenail, or shouldering a load of hay during the Kalpa when the conflagration of fire consumes the world, would all be easy when compared with the difficulty of embracing, reading, and teaching the Dharma Flower Sutra to living beings after the Buddha's extinguishment. The Buddha spares no words in providing a sweeping explanation of the difficulty of embracing and upholding the Dharma Flower Sutra. Just because the Buddha has described embracing and upholding this sutra in this way, it does not mean that we should be discouraged or have any fear that we are incapable of carrying out such a difficult task. Here the Buddha is pointing out the difficulties we will have in perfectly and wholeheartedly receiving and embracing, reading, reciting, and expounding the sutra. Obviously, we must continually strive for perfection, but since we already recognize some of the difficulties mentioned above, there is no need for us to be discouraged by our shortfalls. The very fact that we are actually studying the sutra now, are reciting it to inscribe it on our hearts, and are ready to practice the teaching of the sutra within the limits of our circumstances, bears witness to the possibility of our accomplishing such a difficult task. In these demanding times, we should inspire within each other the courage to become people with whom the Buddhas would be pleased.